presented by Dano's Seasoning. Yum yum, get you some.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Sun Belt with you from the first kick to the last pitch. As always, we're going to start off right after we get through thanking our sponsors real quick, collegefootballdogs.com, W Energy, Fanplex Graphics, TSN Off-Road, and Dano's Seasoning. So thank you to them for helping us bring this show to you. And go check out the links in the description below in order to get you a little discount on some of their goods that they sell. And Marv, you were in Boone. I guess you got there, what, Friday?
Thursday night.
Thursday night. Okay. So you got there on the way up. It really wasn't too bad getting up there, right? Or was it already kind of started?
From like Winston on the way up, it just the rain, the intensity increased. And Thursday night rained a lot. And then Friday was just, that was a lot of water.
Yeah. Were you guys concerned with where you were at specifically, or were you guys in a higher elevation to not be concerned about your situation specifically?
So my in-laws' place does sit up on a hill, but to get there, you've got to cross like some flatlands and across a bridge, like where my wife's grandmother's house is. You have to cross a bridge. The whole way up there, I thought, it's going to be a lot of rain, but like I was going up there for the football game, right? We knew we were going to get a lot of rain, but I don't think anyone anticipated just the devastation and the amount of flooding that happened. I mean, it was like I said, a lot of water, and man, we're lucky to have made it out of there on Saturday. There's absolutely no way there could have been a football game in Boone on Saturday, and man, my heart goes out to not just the people around Boone, but like Asheville and a lot of places in Tennessee and Georgia and South Carolina, just completely devastated by the flooding. Yeah,
they absolutely are. It's a lot of focus on Boone, obviously, with this conference, and then Statesboro, Georgia also got hit fairly hard because, they had a treacherous trip up to get to Atlanta for those fans who made the trip up as well. So a number of places hit. And Artie, thanks for checking in on us, specifically Marv and Seth, as they were up there in the area. I was doing what I typically do, which is not stay the weekend. We usually head up Saturday morning and come back Saturday night. Just to save a little money in that regard. We just do the 3-hour trip. So we are far removed. And obviously, Marv, you're about 3.5, almost 4 hours really by the time you get there. So your home situation is okay. But yeah, thanks for checking in on us, Artie. We appreciate that. I was set to go up, holding out hope that it wouldn't be as bad as some were thinking or saying. But yeah, it was every bit as bad, if not much worse, than what a lot of people had predicted. You shared with me a bunch of photos. We also got some from Seth as well, who's currently, he's been a longtime resident, born and raised there in Fosco, technically. But that's just north. I guess, is it north of Boone or is it south of Boone? Technically, it's going up.
I think it's west of Boone, just slightly going towards the Tennessee line.
Okay, gotcha. But it is a all uphill journey once you get down, like I guess the start of 105, and then you come up the rest of the way, essentially, right?
As soon as you get to the bridge in Valley Crucis, it's up like towards Grandfather Mountain and the Linville area.
Yeah, that's man. Seeing the drone footage today from numerous publications out there. I think Nelson Aerials, which is one of the big ones that's done stuff over App State's football stadium many times, done stuff over the whole campus when the snow falls, and it looks pretty. This was obviously the opposite of that, so pretty treacherous, and it continues to be treacherous. So how are your in-laws doing specifically now?
So they still don't have power, which means, no running water, no power. Their driveway is completely washed out. And that's what people don't realize. Like, you see the drone photos of like the towns and the roads, and there's been a lot of washouts and mudslides and things like that. But up in the mountains, a lot of people live kind of off the beaten path, if you will. And it's a lot of gravel driveways, a lot of creeks and rivers and streams up there with bridges across it. And, it's one way in, one way out. So if a road gets washed out or a bridge gets washed out, you're kind of stranded. You can't really get anywhere. Luckily, the bridge that connects theirs did not wash out, even though it was under about 3 feet of water for a while. but their driveway is completely washed out. And then that's the bad part is there's a lot of people that just can't get out of their houses. You see all these aid stations where there's water and power and oxygen and things like that, but getting to them is the real struggle. And then with the mudslides and landslides and the roads washed out, it's just travel's treacherous. We were, like I said, very lucky to get out when we did. 105, we actually closed down because of a landslide a couple hours after we were able to get out. And I saw someone say this is like a Katrina style event for certain areas, just the devastation. And it's believable. It was eerie driving out, just looking at the devastation. It was almost like going through a war zone. There was no internet, no cell phone service, no radio communication. There was really no cops out. It's going to be a struggle to get everything back up because you talk about getting power lines back up. Well, you got to have roads to drive on to get there. And it's going to be a long recovery effort for a lot of folks.
Yeah. You got Seth jumping on. Seth himself obviously is also dealing with power outage. What he told us, a week or two is his estimation on getting it back? That's
what he thinks. And, Seth was lucky. Well, kind of not lucky. Seth had a medical problem that he had to go attend to on Friday. And on the way back, he couldn't get his car across the bridge. And that bridge to his neighborhood washed out. So he's actually got a vehicle on the other side where he can get out and do stuff. But a lot of people that live in his neighborhood, they can't get out.
Yeah. Crazy, man. And I mean, not only you say that, there's still the process of crossing that stream every time you need to go somewhere. Yeah. And that's not easy, especially immediately. But even, you think about, the simple task of going from your car to your home with the groceries. Like you said, there's stations set up to get people what they need. But then you've got to make the treacherous trip across a stream, which hopefully is a lot less, rapid as hopefully it is now. But it doesn't make it easy. Trying to carry these things, walking on slick rocks and water. I guess you just don't really realize it until you're in it. The crazy thing to me is so many people's spirits seem to be still fairly high. I mean, when I talk to Seth, man, he's not down in the dumps and sounded miserable. I mean, how he's feeling with the medical issue is a different story. But I mean, as far as everyday life, I mean, if you talk to Seth on the phone, man, it's just his personality. He just, it's just another day almost. I mean, it's obviously not, but he's not carrying that weight of what the situation really is on top of everything. It's just.
Yeah, I think when others around you are going through the same thing, there's a lot to be said about small country towns and sense of community, and country folks will survive. They'll band together, and like I said, the recovery effort is going to be strenuous and tedious, but they'll get through, and they'll build back better. But man, it's gonna take a while.
Yeah, and as Artie says here, the standing water also gets nasty because you've got all kinds of things that could come along with that: insects, mold, land erosion. We've seen further land erosion. That part of I-40 that wiped out between Western North Carolina and Tennessee was only about one lane that had kind of gone away. Obviously, they couldn't use the second lane because it was going to go any minute. Yeah. They've completely closed that now. And it's like somebody was saying, once you get close to the Western North Carolina, Tennessee area, and you start zooming in and you just start seeing red everywhere. And these roads are just not passable. A lot of them literally don't exist anymore. Yeah. And like you said, that's going to be one of the biggest issues. Ben James says there's another tropical storm forming in the Gulf of Mexico that's following the same path. Yeah, not what anybody wants to hear.
I saw that it's actually going to veer far out to the east and probably won't affect the areas that were affected the way it was looking to. I mean, they could – I'm only speaking for Boone and the Fosco area because that's where I was. If they had another weather event like that in the next couple of weeks, I don't know what that would mean. It would be it's already devastating. That would just be apocalyptic.
Yeah. And I meant to ask Seth earlier. I mean, he's lived through, again, born and raised there, still living there to this day. If he's ever experienced something quite like this, I mean, winters can get bad where you get your power outage and then the cold becomes a big factor. But is this harder to deal with? Because this is, again, these are roads that really don't exist. You can't just go get something. You can't just have somebody bring something to you. This, I mean, he told us the other night he went out to go grab food, which is kind of crazy because they were telling people not to leave. But, if you don't have a whole lot on hand because people didn't think this might be as bad, they've had floods before. That area is known to flood from minor storms. This one obviously just took a lot more water into it. He says, I think Taco Bell and Sheetz were the only two places open. And he said, every time he walked into a Sheetz, it was about 30 people deep, all trying to grab food. Crazy times, not a town built for something like this. I mean, you and I spent time up there throughout, like, going to school and everything, and it would be a dusting of snow and they would cancel class and you're wondering why. And it's like you said, there's a lot of back roads that don't get the maintenance. They aren't state funded. These are gravel driveways that people maintain themselves, and they become icy and slick. Well, this is, that times a bunch, because not only is there a bunch of water sitting on it, it may be completely gone in some sections. So it's not just, dump some more gravel and get on your way. I mean, it's just not safe to even attempt to get there. So
no, you got to never underestimate the power of running water. It will move very big objects very quickly. I sent you the video and the photo of a house was literally swept off of its foundation and just cruised down what's typically a stream, but then was a river and just collided with a bridge, and house destroyed, bridge destroyed. I mean, it's just it's crazy. But like I said, my hearts go out to just everyone affected. I'm speaking in a very small micro lens of the Boone Fosco area, but there's a lot of places. I mean, you talk about like around Asheville. I've heard like Black Mountain, Montreat, Swanoa, like Lake Lure, Chimney Rock. Like the towns are gone. Like they're gone.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'll really understand how bad it is. Like obviously loss of property, but loss of life too.
Yes.
There's a lot of places that there were swiftwater rescues that first responders couldn't get to. The radios were down. They don't know about it. It's going to be, when it all settles, it's going to be bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Football, obviously the last thing on pretty much anybody's mind. I know we had some controversy back and forth on X specifically with fan bases. But we won't be covering that. We're just going to move on with the current situation. DJ Dreggers is currently in Statesboro right now. He's still missing power. A lot of places, trees are still down everywhere. It's sad to see. Sending prayers out to Boone too. Yeah, I know that's reciprocated. And what's crazy is all those people in Boone don't even know how much other stuff is going on. Because like I said, they're not dealing with Wi-Fi and internet, is hard to come by right now. Seth does have at least enough to tell us it would mean coming to Clayton to stay with Marv. If something crazy were to happen.
Open door policy, buddy. Get on down here.
Yeah, at both places. You can split the time if you want to make it exciting. Ben James says there's also again more storms coming this way. Tyler Austin, who gave some prayer shout outs earlier to start the show, says there's a group from Alabama with helicopters headed towards Boone to help take supplies and food in those remote areas that are missing roads and bridges. Yeah, that's the craziest thing. Like usually up there in the mountains, you don't see too many helicopters because of the high winds, right? Like you can't take off and land easily, but it doesn't matter. Right now, it's more important to get those people things they need when they literally can't make it in or out right now. Ben James saying there's literally no way in or out of Asheville than flying. Yeah, that's a bad situation. We're actually very lucky the dam at Lake Lure did not burst or break or that. I mean, houses would have literally been. I mean, there would have been water over everyone's roofs. That's how much water would have been released had that happened. That was a big concern. But luckily, I think it was just as early as this morning where they really felt more comfortable to say they have it under control and they don't expect any further significant problems. I guess you can't ever say everything's ruled out, but seems like they're going to try and get it under control. Cindy Gallagher got some prayer hands for us here. Seth is going to try and get some sleep. Miss you guys, especially Artie. Yeah. Seth would be loving to be down in Texas right now, I think. That'd be nice. But yeah, there's, yes, on the bad side, Ben James probably say this, over 100 deaths and 100 missing. Yeah, and that's just in some of the more localized areas. The overall number is much more significant than that. And unfortunately, we don't even know the full extent because there's a lot of people. I saw Katie Pate, who used to work at App State. I think she's up in George Mason now. She hadn't heard from her parents in 2 days.
Yeah.
And she kept holding out hope. A lot of her posts were positive. good news this morning. She finally got to talk to her parents on a cell phone. Some people came, some young gentlemen came in with a chainsaw and tried to cut through some trees and get to them, and did that. So they were able to share some boiled water, hot coffee, just crazy. It's crazy to think about. There's all kinds of ramifications, like you said, Marv, still to come from this. Recovery aspect is going to be a long time coming. I think App State is not even holding classes on campus until after October 5th, I think I saw.
Further notice, I'm sure you saw it, like a lot of the apartments there, especially towards like Walmart, and just completely flooded. I wouldn't be surprised if they move classes online for the rest of the semester as they try to find housing for students and just kind of get the community back together.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think of how many kids, too, are putting in insurance claims because their cars are gone or significantly water damaged where they're just incapable of moving them anymore, which you'd think is kind of insignificant in a town like Boone. But again, these roads are all over the place, and you can't just say, well, if you could just get an Uber, none of these things are that easy. Pretty crazy. Oh, CJ Orndorff, JMU fan saying deploying to Boone soon to assist our App Nation from JMU Nation. Yeah, CJ, they definitely appreciate it. I know that they are looking for all the help they can try and get. Tyler's asking, as a new follower, he'd love to hear how we came to cover the Sun Belt. We don't get the love we deserve from the national media. Yeah, that's absolutely. I started this up personally the same year that Ferrari and Smith did, actually. Within like a week's time, I put something out, they put something out. I don't know exactly who was first, but it was almost the same time. So it's kind of crazy. I did it solo for a year. Marv's become a good friend through App State tailgating. Marv went to App State for school, but from the Greenville area. Yep. But now obviously kind of married into a family that resides up there. And so we see each other pretty often for that. We've met up a couple times to do, some baseball stuff when Apps played Duke. And we're texting during every game with Seth. Along with that, TJ is also a part of it as a former player from App. We essentially, I knew I needed a co-host, and nobody wants to sit there and listen to one person talk too long. Schultz does a good job. That's not a knock on Schultz. He does a great job with what he does on the locked on aspect. I think it's more fun. I think Marv and Seth kind of alluded to the fact they might be interested in jumping on, and then it's really taken off, and it's been a whole lot more fun to do this with friends than sitting here staring at a screen by myself. So, yeah, absolutely.
To this point, Sunbelt definitely in a lot of sports doesn't get the respect it deserves. Especially in the money play right now in college sports, the more money, bigger schools always get all the attention. But there's a lot of good athletics in some of these G5 conferences. Who knows? It'll be G whatever by the time all this conference realignment gets done. But there's quality sports being played on football, basketball, baseball throughout the Sun Belt. And, being App State guys going from the Southern Conference to the Sun Belt just kind of made sense to talk about the new conference and shine a light on all the good stuff that's going on.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. He actually says that he's a Troy grad and involved in the alumni chapter locally. And he loves that we're doing this. So we appreciate you following along, Tyler. Really do. We really mean that. Everybody that's followed along. I mean, every time I post a graphic up, it feels like 5 new people that have maybe never heard of us or seen us have liked it and then started to follow the page on Facebook or Twitter or something. So really cool to see it grow kind of organically. We're not spending any money on advertisements. Trust me. We are not at that level. So anything you guys want to share the podcast, either video form or it all comes out in audio form, usually about 2 hours after the show. And as I finish editing that up and post it to Apple and Spotify and all the other little smaller ones. But enough about all that. Let's get to what we saw from this past week's action because we want to get back to the lighter side of things, right, Marv?
Yeah, let's. There was football played, a very, very welcome distraction. How's that?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So we saw some good and some bad. So we'll start with some good. I think, you and I both would have said that we felt pretty confident and comfortable with JMU winning this game easily going into it. TJ and I discussed that. And TJ actually kind of picked a score real similar to this. I don't know if he gave an exact one, but he wouldn't be surprised, he said, if they put up 50 plus 60 points. It's exactly what they did, beating Ball State 63-7. They're now 4-0, a perfect record on the season. Ball State drops to 1-3. I know you said you did get to tune into a little bit this one. Again, you were traveling back from Boone when a lot of this stuff was happening, but
I didn't get to see in the game. I was kind of keeping up with it on ESPN. It's like we were talking before the show, man. The Dukes they're rolling right now. I think week one they kind of sputtered a little bit. We were all like, oh, they lost so much. What, is this what's to be expected? I think it was just working out the kinks of, new staff, new players. But man, offensively, they are just dominant right now. They're playing really well. Put up 70 against Carolina, and then 63 against Ball State. Another 500 plus yard offense day. Forced 3 turnovers. They're good. They are really, really good, and that's what they say about good programs, right? You don't rebuild, you reload, and that kind of seems like what they did.
Yeah. Well, it did take some time, right? I mean, we had those first 2 weeks where even James Madison fans were out there going, I don't know, man. Like, what happened?
Yeah, well, they. I think I heard you and TJ say, hey, nobody wants to play their best ball in September, but I'll tell you what, it damn sure doesn't hurt to play really good ball in September, and their past 2 weeks offensively have been just phenomenal.
Yeah, and they've gotten really good defensively too. Obviously, against that UNC offense, they were going to let up some points, and 50 was a lot. So you look at that and you go, gosh, I mean, you scored a lot, but you let them score a lot. But the flashes that they still had defensively in that game, the amount of pressure they brought, they did the same thing against Ball State. I said to TJ, and you said you listened to that episode, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of tone it down just slightly because, they don't want to go crazy. They don't want to get injuries. They want to play it safe a little bit. They win this game comfortably. There was no doubt in my mind about that. But I thought maybe, 28 points or something, and it would be significant enough. And they say, call off the dogs. We're just going to cruise to the victory here. You have to respect Bob Chesney and the fact that he said, he's played it safe before and he's not going to do that anymore. That was a quote from him after that UNC game. He kept the same thought process here against Ball State. Because, you sleep on somebody a little too long and all of a sudden you're in a dogfight.
Yeah.
You don't want that on your hands. But
Barnett goes for another 280 and 5 touchdowns through the air, added another one on the ground. I think he had 7 touchdowns total last weekend and 6 this weekend. So, 13 touchdowns in the past 2 weeks. That's just getting it done.
Yeah, this is one of those games where you're like questioning if Ball State's an FCS program with how it looked on the field, right? I mean, Ball State's not good. They're 1-3. They weren't great coming in. It wasn't like all of a sudden the record doesn't speak for how they are, which we'll get into some teams where that is the case. But Ball State was probably just as bad as their record looked coming in. CJ saying Ball State bullied the MRD, so JMU took care of it. Oh, yeah, the MRD is, for those that don't know, the Duke's band. I did see an article that related to that. I didn't get all the way into it. I have no idea what happened there. But, yeah, apparently something happened with the band, and maybe that's why JMU went off. I think they did it regardless of what would have happened. But that may have been an aspect of what they did here in this one. All right. Next one up, I think you did say you got to see some of this one. Texas State up 22-0 early, ends up losing to Sam Houston State down in NRG Stadium there in Houston, 40-39. How the hell do you let that happen?
I don't know. It was the first half. They got up 22. Sam Houston came back and scored 21, 3 touchdowns in the second quarter. I told you before the show, it kind of felt like in the first half, I was like, man, whoever has the ball last is going to win the football game. But if you look at the stats, like it wasn't a turnover-prone game, fairly evenly matched. I mean, within 22 yards total offense. Sam Houston only had 95 yards passing, but they were able to get 300 on the ground. It's kind of like we were talking, after the Arizona State game, you're like, oh crap, Texas State's really good. And Sam Houston's not a bad team. Their 4-1 record suggests that they're not a bad team. I don't know who all they've played, but this is a game that you would have thought that Texas State would be able to take care of business. They started off like they were, and then the wheels just fell off.
Yeah. We'll get to Artie's comment, and then I'll tell you who Sam Houston State has played. Artie says, this is among the biggest disappointment in Bobcats history, and I've been a fan since the early 90s. Our players made basic plays, then celebrate and dance around like jackasses. He continues, unsportsmanlike penalties that cost us the game. Coaches were busy drinking the Kool-Aid, being cool and friends with the players. Coaches can't make basic adjustments. Fans are disgusted. Yeah, I mean, this is as already alluded to last week that I didn't quite know. This is a very old school rivalry that has come back around now that both teams have moved up to the FBS together. In the end, they didn't do it at the same time, but they are now at the FBS level together. And not one you want to lose. You're in a neutral site, and I don't know. He's already saying GJ Kenny held a presser for a few minutes and then ran off before our media arrived. Oof, yeah, not a good look. I mean, this is one of those ones. It's inter-Texas game. Doesn't matter if it's North Texas, Sam Houston State, UTSA. You do not want to lose this one, especially with what we all thought about Texas State coming into this game. Yeah, to go back though, Sam Houston State beat Rice, Hawaii, and New Mexico State before getting by Texas State. Their lone loss comes to a pretty high-powered UCF team, but that one was a 45-14 shellacking. So it's not like that one loss was close and they beat who they should have beat otherwise. So yeah, I don't know what you feel like. I mean, you just feel like you just completely let it get away from you. There's really no other way to say it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, 11 penalties for 88 yards. I didn't really, like I said, didn't get to see all the game. McLeod had a great game, 326, 3 touchdowns, no picks.
Yeah.
You give up 300 yards rushing and 5 rushing touchdowns. We always talk about that. He who runs the ball wins, typically. I don't know. Once again, you jump out to a lead like that. Offense is clicking. You score 39 points. You're doing well. You only turn the ball over once. If you close your eyes and someone said, hey, your quarterback's going to throw for 320 and 3 touchdowns, you're only going to turn the ball over once, and the other team's only going to pass for 95 yards, you're like, yeah, we've got that one. But I still think Texas State offense is really, really good. Defensively, they've got some things to shore up.
Yeah, which is crazy because they had the same issue last year, and they got, they added guys in the portal. They keep Ben Bell around. I don't know. I really just don't get what happened. I was watching most of this one live. I just don't get how you let it slip away. It was like every time Sam Houston would score, you're like, okay, well, Texas State's going to get the ball there. They'll add at least a field goal. They'll at least get, a good amount of yardage and chew up a bunch of clock. And it just kept not happening. It's like you said, it's not like McLeod threw 2 interceptions toward the end of the game. You're like, well, if that doesn't happen, and it's like you did, like you said, everything that was asked for, and you essentially shut down the other team's passing game, and they still beat you by 1 point. Just insane. Artie says they'll be lucky to win 3 games in conference. Talent means nothing without football IQ, accountability, and discipline. This team doesn't have it, and the coaches can't instill it. Staff can't make proper game adjustments at all. Well, is Texas State a mirror image of App State?
There's this thing called the Mountaineer Message Board. You should go join that and just change Texas State to App State, and you'll fit in and have a bunch of new friends.
Yeah. Yep, you will. There's a lot of questions on both sides because, like you said, the talent seems to be there. Both Texas State and App State pretty much led the locker rooms as far as Sunbelt media was concerned about who was going to come out of the West and the East this year. And both are now sitting at just 2-2. So crazy times. That's why they play the games, as they say, right? Speaking of games to be played, this one didn't happen. Again, we've touched on why, but the 4-0 Liberty team against 2-2 App State in Boone did not get played, and it will not be rescheduled. It did look like both teams had an open date on October 19th. App State would be well situated to host on that date. However, that would be asking Liberty to they have enough time coming in, but the very next week they have, I think, a Wednesday game. So they have a very quick turnaround. That's likely why they really can't get it to work out. That was probably discussed up front if that game would have to be rescheduled, and there was probably no other better solution than that possibility with them having to turn around and play a conference game. We all know this. Conference games matter vitally more than out-of-conference games. There's no reason to make this game up, which, good and bad, right, could lead to a fever pitch when this game does finally happen, either in Lynchburg or in Boone. But it is not
scheduled for Lynchburg next year.
Yeah. And so I don't think that'll move, but with all this conference realignment that's possibly happening, the team we just talked about, Texas State, having conversations with the Mountain West and apparently the Pac-12 as a possibility as well. You never know. But yes, currently on schedule for next season, should be someone with fireworks, although we'll see what App State can do to round in to form in that regard. This one was great.
Sunday of the week.
Yes. I mean, this was punch for punch, blow for blow. Wake Forest is 1-3. Raging Cajuns now 3-1. So flip those records for those two teams. But the Cajuns get by 41-38 as Wake doinks a field goal off the upright to help end this one in the Cajuns' favor. And I'm glad they did. For a multitude of reasons. I don't really respect the Wake Forest football program. To me, they're kind of along the lines of UNC. Like, you want to be great, but come on, let's be honest. You're not really a football program. You're not a football school. I took the Cajuns to win this one. I took the 3 points. Give me everything. I think you said you did too, right?
I did as well. Yeah. Wake Forest, they had a couple good years. I think Dave Clawson was the coach then.
Yes.
They went to the Orange Bowl. A lot of money down there, but they're not a football school. Cajuns have been playing really good. I was really impressed. Even on a loss to Tulane, I thought that they played really well. And no, this one didn't shock me at all. But man, what a phenomenal game! Who would have thought that when you go ahead with 52 seconds left, that's not enough time. But your field goal kicker is better than their field goal kicker. That's what matters at the end of the day. But man, great game. Good win. It's an ACC opponent regardless. At the end of the season, you're going to look back and say, hey, we went on the road and beat an ACC team. So great win for the Cajuns.
Yeah, absolutely. This one was not reminiscent all the way across the board because the intricacies of the game were different as far as the scoreboard and the talent level looking similar on both sides as far as getting stuff done, but 4 Cajuns ejected from this game due to targeting, much like the App State versus ECU game when we saw, I think, only 3 App State players ejected.
It was 3 targetings called. One of them was reversed.
One was reversed. Okay. But a lot of these were the same as those aspects where live, no flag thrown, no player on either team expected it. Nobody was standing up saying, hey, throw the flag or, targeting. And then all of a sudden a review comes in. Yeah. And it's tough to watch some of these kids get thrown out of a game because of a tackle that, due to body positioning changing at a very split second. What are you supposed to do? Now there was probably at least one of those that was pretty clear. The guy was looking at the player and then, put his head down like a ram and hit him. Okay. Yeah. One of those is probably really legit and should have been called. But some of the other ones were just like, really? We're playing the same thing with that app game against ECU. You're just like, dude, the guy tackled the quarterback. There was helmet contact. He didn't, it's just so hard to watch sometimes if some of these kids get thrown from games. At one point, their best linebacker who was at media days, Casey Osai, got thrown out of the game. I believe he's got reversed because I believe he got back in. But yeah, I mean, just crazy. So even more credit though to the Cajuns for overcoming 4 players being thrown out of this game, and most of them starters, if not all of them starters, and then still going on to take care of business against Wake Forest in Winston-Salem. So absolute credit
on how close this game was. So like the stats are eerily similar. So on third down, Louisiana was 8 for 12. Wake Forest was 8 for 13. Total yards, 467 to 472, 5 yards. Passing yards, 257 to 254. Rushing yards, 210 to 218. Time of possession within 2 minutes. I mean, this was just a back and forth as close as you can get game. And I don't know what the diameter of a field goal post is, but how close this game was to going to overtime. And, man, just what a great game once again, not to be redundant. Also win for the Cajuns. That's my Sun Belt win of the week. And look out west. The Cajuns are rolling.
Yeah. I thought they'd be back this year. I didn't know if they'd be at the top. Wasn't willing to go out on that limb with what Texas State was bringing back and had added into the fold. But it looks like feeling like the Cajuns could be on top of the West again was a smart thought process there. Already says, like the Texas State defensive player, clean, hard hit, and it's targeting because helmet touched. I want player safety, but come on. Yeah, exactly. I think the same way. When the kid that gets hit and the team that absorbs the hit, the sideline's not going crazy, the kid's not asking for a flag, and he pops right back up. Let's feel the game out a little bit here, right? No one's looking for it. No one's expecting it. And then you have the guys in the booth that come out and say it. Now, if it's a blatantly missed targeting because it was, in a crowd and the guy dropped his crown in it and then you miss it, that's a little different. That's not what we're talking about here. Like Artie said, we're talking about player safety. We want that. But at the same time, okay, keep the targeting call even, but make it a penalty and the kid's not thrown from the game. I mean, you can tell when these things are meant and when they are not meant. So
malicious intent and playing ball are different things. Sometimes a defender's already gone down to make the tackle, and then the offensive player, his body just goes down because of whatever reason, and there's contact. And that to me is not targeting. And you shouldn't be throwing it. Now, a guy clearly takes a guy across the middle and the guy standing up and you launch. That's malicious. You should be thrown out of the game for that. Player safety, they're emphasizing that. I get it, but I'm with you that there should be an ejectable targeting penalty, and then there should just be a 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalty.
Yeah, I feel like they already kind of do that, so why not just keep it consistent, right? Like some of these things where the guys pushing each other, you can kind of take some of them as like a punch, and then sometimes they just call it a push. But I'll see like a different game where they consider the push to the face mask a punch. Yeah. And it's like, okay, do the same thing with targeting then. Technically, closed fist is a punch, and you're ejected for that. But an open hand, push that's kind of like a punch, it's not a punch, and they stay in the game, they just get a flag. Okay, so again, targeting, same thing. There was helmet to helmet contact, and it was stronger than should have been, but it wasn't intentful, or I don't know. Again, I'm not going to write the rule, but there needs to be something done because these kids now are also under NIL deals. They're expected to play on the game. If they're not doing something malicious, I don't think they should be thrown from the game, and then also have to sit, a half of the next game too. It's just further punishment for a game that has nothing to do with what they just went through. Doesn't make any sense. Okay, Yo Boy Carr saying, does Eagle go in gumbo? Guessing that's an upcoming matchup because Wake Forest has nothing to do with the Eagles there, so I'm not sure on that comment, but you got to kick out of that one. So it might be something that's coming up. Not sure off the top of my head, but are y'all going to talk about recent realignment news? Maybe if we've got time at the end, we'll try.
I think we kind of touched on. I mean, so the Texas State offers from the Mountain West. I wasn't aware of the Pac-12. Is that the only news, or has there been some other rumors?
Well, no. Well, there's a couple things attached to it. I guess we'll just we'll break it down right now. Drop out from that. So the latest that I've seen is that there is an outstanding offer from the Mountain West. That may not be 100% confirmed, but that is what the rumor is.
I saw that on ESPN that the Mountain West has officially offered.
Okay, that's what I thought. So they have offered. The Pac-12 has had conversations, it sounds like. I don't think an official invitation has been extended. To me, it makes sense in one way for Texas State if they bring somebody with them. What should I say again?
Geography is the only thing that makes sense. But yes, if they could add another G5 Texas school to it as kind of like a travel partner, if you will, then maybe it makes sense.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly who that may be. I mean, they just played Sam Houston State. That could be a good one.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think UTSA is going to be committed to the American, though. That's where the problem comes in. The thing I don't like about it is Texas State is a little bit of an outlier in the Sun Belt. There's no lying about that. And have they not had last season and what the expectations were coming into this season, everyone probably been like, fine, leave, we don't care, right? However, Texas has a strong stranglehold to have at least somebody located in for a few reasons, but most of them are quite obvious: recruiting and just, Texas is bigger with football in the grand scheme of things and everything. But it makes sense. I mean, they don't feel like they have any natural rivalries within this conference. So maybe going west provides those. Again, UTEP to me is not really all that close, but I mean, I guess that could be one that's kind of still technically inter-Texas if they go with wherever UTEP's in. UTEP? I can't even remember now. So many teams have moved around. I can't remember if UTEP's in the Conference USA or American or.
Dude, Cal's in the Cal's in the ACC. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what Artie's saying. He says, sorry, geography is worse. A 6-hour trip turns into 14 hours. Just stay in the Sun Belt, please. Yeah. At this point, I think the move that I'd like to see is to appease Texas State by bringing in somebody else. If it's Sam Houston State, maybe. I would love to see UTSA if you're going to bring somebody in. Just I think they're more ready across the board. Sam Houston State has just moved up to the FBS. I think this year's the first year they're eligible for a bowl game or whatever. So it's too early for me to say I'd be excited to all of a sudden have Sam Houston State. However, I would be excited to add UTSA as a football school for sure. I'm not sure about everything else along the aspect of their sports. If their basketball is any good, I'm not off the top of my head. I don't know. Marv, are you familiar if they have a good basketball program?
I am not outside of, the recent football success. That's the only reason I'm really familiar with the Roadrunners.
Yeah, I think the same thing can be said for me. Artie says, how will we watch games? The Smoke Signal Network or extrasensory projection? Yeah. And then Tyler's touching on the penalty for the targeting that we were calling. They need to do like the old face mask penalties, incidental versus personal foul. If it's not malicious, they need an ejection. If not, keep the penalty. Absolutely. Yeah, that's one really good, easy fix. Oh, thanks for putting that one on there, Tyler. Appreciate that. Yo boy Cars is saying Texas State gets good for 2 years and then starts threatening to leave. At least be loyal to the conference that held on to you through the roughest times, but in all seriousness, would be a good move for Texas State. UTEP is in junior conference. Mountain West needs to add UTEP and New Mexico State. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much movement. Texas State is just unfortunately positioned where you're like, they don't make a ton of sense to just say, oh, they'd be a shoe in here, right? I mean, that's just the reality of it.
And we got to quit looking at everything through the lens of football, right? Like, it costs money to send, take Old Dominion's baseball team out there, softball team out there, volleyball team out there. I mean, it's a lot of travel for non-revenue sports. We've talked about it in the past, obviously, in the Power Four, like there's unlimited money. It doesn't matter. Throw them on an airplane, put them in hotels. For the group of five, as money becomes a bigger play, being more regional makes sense. The more bus trips you can take, the better it is for cost savings and also the rivalry thing. I mean, the closer you are, it breeds a rivalry. I don't know. I like Texas State. I think they're a valuable member of the Sun Belt. But take your fan hat off and put your money hat on, and that's where it's going to go. Yeah, no,
that's very true. I mean, the bottom line is you're looking at TV dollars. That's what this is all about ever since TV contracts have come in and kind of ruined what was once thought of as a pretty good NCAA setup. Now it's all about TV money. And I'm not really sure the Pac-12, let alone the Mountain West, should have a better TV deal than the Sun Belt. But maybe that would be the case. I just truly don't know. I think the current deal probably is better. We all know the Sun Belt is not the strongest current TV deal, but we think the next one should be pretty good. It's just, unfortunately, not right around the corner. It's a couple of years away.
2008?
I think it might even be like 30 or 31. It's a ways. But I would say this. There's a real good chance you could restructure that contract if you start stealing teams from other conferences and bringing them in.
Yeah, I agree.
The bad part about that is you steal one or two, you're probably okay because maybe you lost one or two, and now your payout is still relatively similar. You add 4 more teams and you start splitting that pot up even more, that payout decreases per team, right? So there's a balancing act, and not only with who do you bring in, but how many of those people do you bring in? So,
I agree.
Are you saying you don't want to have us, Marv?
No, I said I'd love to have you guys. I enjoy having you guys. I think obviously baseball is phenomenal down there.
Yeah.
Football is on the rise, even though it already seems a little down on them right now. But once again, I'm taking my fan hat out and off, and you got to put the CEO money hat on, and that's the discussion that the chancellor and athletics director and the conference commissioners got to have. And where does it make sense to be?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is the absolute driving force. Tyler saying, I still don't understand why we took ODU. Was it the money? I think that's exactly what Marv was talking about. You're talking about bus trips between them and JMU. And for those that don't know, ODU's women's basketball team, I think it was 1984, won a national championship. And they were actually in the Sun Belt when that happened. Then they left the Sun Belt, and I think they moved like 1 or 2 other conferences before they came back to the Sun Belt. Obviously, women's basketball wasn't at that point then what it is now. But if those things were to happen today, that's a huge driving force about keeping them in the conference. They have a great women's basketball program. Men's basketball program's pretty good. Expected to do some pretty good things. They had some good recruiting going on last year. Now their head coach, Mike Jones, is going to be on the prowl. Mike Jones. That's never going to get old, right? I mean, we're going to do that all season long.
Never. I used to work with a guy named Mike Jones, and that was a ongoing joke that he probably hated. But hey, going back to the ODU thing, why do we take ODU? I know there was a rumor that to get Marshall, they wanted somebody else coming from Conference USA with them. But Tidewater, Virginia, man, there's a lot of people. It's a big TV market, lots of money, and pretty good athletes all over Tidewater, Virginia for recruiting.
Yep. I was just going to say the recruiting hotbed of Tidewater, Virginia. I mean, they put some players out. So, yeah, that is definitely a big aspect. Too bad Tarleton State won't move up. They have a good fan base, probably years away, would also give Texas State a rival. Well, also the big aspect of that used to be about $1 cool million to move up. Guess how much it costs now, Marv? Do you know that off the top of your head?
Oh, man, I'm going to say 18 stuck in my head. That's the number I had.
$5 million now to move from Division I AA or FCS to 1A or FBS. So
well, that's a bargain based off the number I had. Move 3 teams up.
Yeah, there you go. You get more bang for your buck. Yeah, I think the teams though that are on the cusp of doing that, all the ones that should have moved up already, honestly, have. I don't know if anybody else.
How does like a Montana and a North Dakota State not moved up yet?
Geography and money. Like you said, that's a big aspect. Like not only would the move be expensive for them, but then they'd have to find a place that they fit into, and then they can afford to literally stay there and play these games in conference that are baseball in California and everything else. So yeah, it's unfortunate for them because absolutely talent level wise and routinely being very, very good, they do deserve it.
Dominic Ambrose, that post for the win, that is probably the most logical thing to do.
Yes.
But I think you probably have a little bit of the Pac-12 is living off the past and thinks that they're better than the Mountain West. But to be honest, you're poaching so many Mountain West teams. You are now the new Mountain West. That would make logical sense for those two to merge.
Yeah. Instead, the Pac-12.
All the Mountain West would do is assume 2 teams. Name it the Pac-12 to make everybody feel really good about it because of that, just brand recognition from over the decades. But that's probably the smartest play.
Yeah, and again, instead they're suing each other. Well, not each other. Pac-12 is suing Mountain West for antitrust violation. I guess like poaching of the teams essentially is what they're trying to say that the Mountain West is doing.
But the Pac-12 is poaching all the Mountain West teams. But yeah, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's all.
Back to the football. We'll talk about that's all theoretical. I don't think the realignment shuffle is over.
No,
and I definitely think the Sun Belt gets impacted by it.
Yeah, absolutely. Pack is just warmed over. Yeah, exactly. It is the same old crap, just a different different name, or maybe, they're going to force these same names that just don't make sense, like the Big Ten that has 20 teams or whatever, just ridiculous that they don't do that. Sunbelt needs to add UTRGV. It's like every letter. They just picked all the letters for that. Big enrollment, new football program, established baseball in metro area of over 1 million people. That's University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. For those that don't know, I think we played them in, not them. One of our teams played them in baseball last year. Maybe it was Texas State. Maybe. At this point where the Sun Belt is, Marv, I think you probably agree with me. We want to bring in like bigger brands. Like I've always said Memphis and ECU because
ECU is an absolute logical choice to bring in just because of where they are located. But if you lost Texas State in the West, it doesn't probably make sense to bring in another team for the East.
True.
Yeah, that's why
uneven.
Yeah, that's why other people get paid the big bucks to make those decisions. But I think that once again, I think realignment's not done. I think Sun Belt gets impacted, but I think the Sun Belt's in a really great place. I mean, if you look at the additions that the Sun Belt has made since App came in, App, Georgia Southern, Coastal, Marshall, James Madison, ODU, like those are all pretty darn good ads.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of them for different reasons. Like we said, and ODU hasn't been successful in football as of yet. But I mean, they're pretty good in other things, and they're building some brand new facilities. They've got arguably one of the best basketball things, basketball arenas, basketball things. I don't know why I said things. But yeah, and Tyler saying, for the love of all that is good and holy, I don't like Troy having a Thursday game this week and then turn around in 10 days to play Tuesday night for our rivalry game. This can't be the best TV deal, right? I don't know.
No, but hey, at least it's not Maction.
It's not Maction, but the one thing you're getting, it's not the best, but you are getting national television audiences for your game. So,
yeah, that's the welcome to life in the G5.
Yeah, and Tyler, that's so funny that he just mentions that right after RD had put that in there. They're on different platforms, so it's funny that he mentions Rio Grande Valley as well. Your boy Carr saying Middle Tennessee State. Yep, they've been in before. They're rumored to be in again. Western Kentucky's in that same boat. There's some people saying the bridge between La Tech and the Sun Belt may have been mended a little bit, and they may stand a chance if Texas State were to leave. I don't want to lose Artie Cat, man. That's the most important piece here.
Yeah, and sorry, Artie Cat, we would not start a Pac-12 Mountain Valley podcast. That's not going to be us.
Yeah.
But out of those three teams that you just mentioned, I would take La Tech over Mid-Tennessee or Western Kentucky. Any day of the week, just geographically, they'd be in a spot that makes sense.
They do.
Mid-Tennessee, I don't see what they add. Western, I don't know.
Yeah, you do have to say that Western Kentucky is a big ad for football and basketball. Obviously, we know basketball, they've been great lately, so they'd be instantly getting us closer to a two-bid league if we had what kind of situation we had this year, where App State was really good in the regular season but didn't quite get the respect to get an at-large bid because of that. If you got a team like Western Kentucky and then everybody else is just slightly behind them, then maybe you stand a little better chance. Yo Boy Carr saying 3 Louisiana teams is too much. That's probably right. And it's one of the reasons that people have also argued against Liberty. There's a lot of arguments against that, but 3 teams in Virginia is what that would make the teams in the East there. So that is a good point, and it's fair to say. Traders who tried to kill the Sun Belt, no way they should welcome them back, and that's referring to La Tech. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. I like the toppers, too. It seems like they always get added by bigger schools for games. Yeah, They've done it pretty good. They had a big game just this week where they were about to take down Boston College, but then just couldn't get it done. Boston College comes back and wins that one. Okay.
Back to the football.
Back to the football. Back to the things that we really want to cover for right now, because the realignment discussion isn't going away anytime soon. So we will round back into that probably every episode at some point.
We could do a whole episode on that if we wanted to. That would last.
We should do a special, but it'll change by the time we put it out. It'll be old. So Georgia Southern travels up again. Statesboro, Georgia, also getting hit by this hurricane and the flooding, specifically with the high winds too. A lot of downed trees on their trek up to Atlanta, but they come into Center Park Stadium and take down Georgia State 38-21 to move to 3-2 on the year and get their first conference win. Georgia State drops to just 2-2 on the year, obviously their first conference loss. I think both of us expected this coming in, right? Maybe not the score exactly, but at least a Georgia Southern victory.
No, I mean, when I looked at the line, I told you pre-show, when I saw Georgia Southern was plus 3.5, I thought that was easy money. Obviously Georgia State got the Vanderbilt win. Vanderbilt took Missouri down to the absolute wire, lost on a missed field goal. But yeah, I thought Georgia Southern was going to win the game. Did you watch any of this?
I did. Yes. I watched pretty much all of this one.
I did as well. I thought Georgia Southern was going to absolutely run away with it at the beginning. Georgia State had a couple, that 58-yard touchdown pass midway through the third quarter to bring it within 3 points.
Yeah.
Then Georgia Southern was just too much after that. Great game, but kind of what I expected. I thought that Georgia Southern was going to win the game outright.
Yeah, I didn't really have any doubt with them winning. My question was how close it was, and I was like, ooh, 3 points. Like, there's something that the bettors are seeing that they think this is almost a coin toss, right? Like, it's not a for sure thing. But I did feel comfortable in that 3 myself. I just didn't know if it would be more like 7 or 10 or 14 because we've seen Georgia State play well. Like you said, that Vanderbilt win, they've been pretty impressive since then. But, I mean, we've seen the firepower from Georgia Southern all season long. The question was the defense, and it's gotten a little bit better along the way. They allow 21 points here, still get it done. They started getting Jalen White really going for the first time all season at 114 yards and 2 touchdowns in this one. That's kind of the performance I've been waiting to see to say that this offense is really, really going to be good consistently all year. J.C. French needed it because he goes for 237 but only throws 1 touchdown, which is by far I guess technically is about the same output as he had against Ole Miss because he did get did he throw for it or did he run that one? Anyways, he did have a touchdown, I think, last week against Ole Miss. The only touchdown before Kentucky scored a couple that Ole Miss had allowed all season. Anyway, in this one, not totally shocked.
They had 200-yard rushers, 4 running touchdowns, 265 yards on the ground. Ran for more than they passed, which, if you historically think about Georgia Southern, that's what you would expect. Right. They still did turn the ball. I think they fumbled twice. But I will never pronounce the Georgia State quarterback's last name. Villano? Am I saying that?
Okay. It doesn't look like it's pronounced at all. Vayer.
I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to butcher his name for the rest of the season. I apologize in advance now. We'll never do it again. He throws
just call him Christian for his first name.
He throws 3 picks. But, I mean, Georgia Southern dominated time of possession, 40 minutes to 20 minutes. And obviously 265 yards on the ground will allow you to dominate time of possession. But once again, got out big. Georgia State looked like they were going to crawl in and make it a game, and then they just they took control after that. So what do they call this? Georgia born.
Georgia grown.
Georgia grown. No offense to the state of Georgia. That is a very dumb name for a rivalry game. Commissioner's Cup would be better. What would they used to call it? What was it called?
Well, the real fans are still calling it modern day hate.
Modern day hate. Man, how many hate games can Georgia Southern have? Like a hate week, modern day hate.
I said I still got to bring the shirt out. I want our logo on the front and on the back, or vice versa. I don't care which way it goes. But the other side's going to say every week is hate week. I love it. Everybody hates each other.
I love that too. I love that too. But yeah, hey, good win for the Eagles. I think if they can figure out the defense, they got the offense to stay in any game.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. Yo-Boy Carr's rounding back out. I think he was trying to get this comment in right before we moved on from the relocation stuff, but might as well throw in Jackson State as the 3rd Alabama school then too. Yeah, we'll just bring like 3 schools from every state. Why not?
Yeah,
it's fun. Tony Thomas, what's up, guys? What's going on, Tony? He's a resident Louisiana and Southern Miss fan, actually. So not having the greatest year there, but they did not have a game this week. So we will next jump into Western Michigan against Marshall. This one in Huntington. Marshall Thunder and Herd get by 27-20. moved to 2-2, dropped Western Michigan to just 1-3 on the year, but just a 7-point game. I expected a little bit more out of Marshall with what I had seen on both sides coming in. I mean, Marshall played Ohio State fairly well. Again, the score doesn't look great, but if you watched it by the eye test, they didn't get physically dominated. A couple runs broke outside, and obviously the wide receivers are just another level up there. But yeah, yikes! I didn't think this was to be all that close, and it was only a one touchdown game here.
Yeah, I figured it would be close. I mean, Marshall jumps out to, I think it was a 17-3 halftime lead. Then the game's tied in the fourth quarter. They were able to come away with it. I thought they would win. I didn't know really how close it would be. I don't know much about Western Michigan, to be completely honest with you. Marshall completely outgained them. Turnovers about even. Yeah, I don't know. Probably, now that I was sitting thinking about it, probably what I expected. I don't know how good Marshall is, to be completely honest with you. And I didn't know how good Western Michigan was, but the fact that they were at home, to be expected.
Yeah, they've got a guy named Mike Green defensively who's been a standout and a NFL hopeful. He's pretty dang good if you haven't checked him out. They actually went up against Old Dominion quarterback transfer Hayden Wolf, which was on the Western Michigan side. So A little bit of familiarity maybe for Wolf, and maybe that's why he had a pretty good amount of success. I mean, it wasn't great. He went 126 for one touchdown, so it wasn't amazing, but he didn't have any interceptions. So took care of the ball there, had he didn't really have anything on the ground there. He had one carry for 0 yards. But yeah, they had Nixon go for a 146 for the Broncos, but A.J. Turner countered that fairly well with a 124-yard performance himself. Again, if he's not one of the best backs in all of the Sun Belt, you'd have to find me somebody else who's consistently better than him. The unfortunate part is he doesn't seem to find the end zone all that much for some reason, but he's hitting that century mark all the time. So if you haven't watched A.J. Turner, be sure to keep an eye out for him.
See him this weekend.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. You're not going up there, are you?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I know Seth really wanted to go up there this year, and we were thinking about doing a trip, but obviously with everything that's happened.
Seth might not be able to get up there.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to do much with that.
Those NIL biscuits from March. That's funny.
Yeah, I'd happily be slowed down by some Tudor's biscuits up there in the Huntington area, but unfortunately that won't be happening for me this year. Okay, so Hayden Wolf transfers out of ODU, and then they get the other quarterback to come in, which was interesting because I think they had a couple guys play in this one because I think that freshman came in and ran for one towards the end that I think got them the lead. Yeah, Colton Joseph comes in and runs that one into the end zone for their last touchdown to beat Bowling Green. And to be honest with you, again, we kind of expected the Cajuns to win. So this one to me was the biggest shocker of the weekend, with ODU winning 30-27. Both teams now 1-3. So you're thinking, well, I mean, neither team's very good. Go check out who Bowling Green had their 2 losses to before coming into this one. Ranked opponents that included Penn State and Texas A&M. And I think, man, I'd have to pull it up, but I think they lost both of those games by like a 1 score.
They were 11.5-point dogs. Bowling Green was at home.
Really?
Yeah, 11.5.
In this game?
In this game.
Interesting. I would not have said that. I mean, they lose to Penn State by 1 score, and they lose to Texas A&M by 6 points. So 1 score,
wow.
But a touchdown and an extra point would have won it for them.
They
both were on the road.
They had the lead with 3 minutes to go. It took a touchdown by Old Dominion with 24 seconds left to go in the game to get them over.
Well, and I'll tell you what, this was one of those other ones that was kind of like the Cajuns game against Wake Forest. It was blow for blow, punch for punch. I mean, ODU jumps out to, I think they were up 14-0 to start the game out. And then Bowling Green comes back to get 7 in that first quarter. And then from there, it was just back and forth until, like you said, 24 seconds left to go. Joseph runs it in there. He looked fairly good. They're both inconsistent passing wise, I'd say. I mean, they were, Wilson was 6 for 14 and Joseph was 6 for 6.
Yeah, two quarterbacks. Threw for 144 yards. Man, one thing I've noticed about Old Dominion is they just like to make games ugly. Slow it down. They're always scrappy. They finally get on the good side of this one, but they've had a bunch of games. I think Virginia Tech, East Carolina, South Carolina, like they've been in every football game to go on the road, come from behind, essentially a last-second score to win it. Maybe that gets them over the hump, but Old Dominion just seems like the kind of team that is just going to be in every single football game, and maybe this proves to them that they can win one of those.
Yeah, and I think we saw a little bit of that last year. They set the record last season for score losses. I think it was just games within one score. They had the most games within one score of any team in the country last year. So their record could have been significantly different had 2 or 3 of those gone the other way, including their bowl game, which they were up big on, and then ended up coming back and losing that one in overtime. I do want to give a shout out to Pat Conroy. Broke away for 2 touchdowns in this game. One of them was awesome. He was in the backfield, I think, lined up as a running back, essentially. Pass protection kind of look, and it was kind of a delayed thing where he was, sat back and then went up the middle, up the gut, untouched, unmarked, unchecked, and I think it was Wilson that threw that one, deep ball over the middle, and he wasn't going to be touched the rest of the way. So, he had a phenomenal game with those 2 touchdowns. Almost. He only needed 1 more yard to get the century mark.
3 catches for 99 and 2 touchdowns. Pretty decent day.
Yeah. Definitely made them count. So shout out to him for having a great weekend to help the Monarchs get back into the win column for the first time this season. Speaking of the win column for the first time this season, Troy only sitting on 1 victory, now at 1-4 after a 13-9 loss to ULM, who now moves to a surprising 3-1. Marv, wasn't it you who said you put a couple bucks on ULM to surpass their win total of the season?
Yeah, well, they did it in the first. I think their win total was at 1.5. They did it in the first 2 weeks of the season.
Crazy.
I mean, I knew nothing of no expectations, but I was like, man, they'll figure out a way to win 2 games, right? But this was a surprise to me. I mean, obviously we've known the success that Troy's had the past 2 years. They lost a lot. Let's be honest about that. But man, I really thought this was going to go the other way. I didn't anticipate a 13-9 game. I didn't get to see any of this. I don't know if weather played a huge factor in this one, but just kind of looking at the stats, I mean, ULM was 6 for 11 passing. Troy was 7 for 12. There was not a lot going through the air on that. Ross was kind of shut down. Definitely his most quiet game of the year. I think he only had like 3 catches for 30 yards. But yeah, ULM 3-1.
Shocking here. Tony, I want to let you know we're going to get to your comment. I'm going to wait that there's one more game after this one I want to cover, and then that's a great thought and question there you got for us. Artie says, I loved every minute of this game, and hopefully his parents should have used a Trojan. Joe did as well. Somehow I don't think he liked this one that much.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. And we love Trojan Joe, though, by the way, except for when he comes on a podcast and he has his tag as the mayor of Boone. Didn't appreciate that, but hey, he's a world-class crap talker.
Yeah, and I do want to give a shout-out to, real quick, guys at JMU Sports Blog, the Thundercast, Troy Boys, Joe specifically, and countless others that are just individuals reached out to check in on us, and some may have not been familiar with how far from Boone I actually live, but it was nice to have them ask about Marv and Seth as well. And TJ's out this way too, so we're all kind of safe out this way. But yeah, we do appreciate everybody who did check in. Tyler is saying Troy's down. If I had to guess, I'd say for at least another season. We lost some serious experience after last season, which is why we went back-to-back in conference titles. That being said, it's not fun to watch right now. It's also a transition year. I like Coach Parker, and I think he'll do well here. ULM is not that great of a ball club. I was disappointed we couldn't move the ball on them. It's like the old saying, one wasn't very good, the other was glad of it. Yeah, I mean, we said it a couple weeks ago. Like, Troy was always going to have to round into form. it's like Tyler said, you lost a lot of experience, a lot of really good players on that team. Then you're coming in with a brand new staff. So it's not like, oh, the guys that have been doing it are still recruiting them and bringing them in. You're starting all over. You're starting from scratch here. It's not fair to judge this Troy team off of the past 2 seasons. It's just not. And it's also not fair to just ULM on their past seasons with this new staff and these new players. So, one's working out really good in the early part of the season and one's not. I mean, who's to say that doesn't change by the end? We've seen it happen countless times in the Sun Belt Conference on both the East and the West side. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a surprise. But, hey, you know what? Good for ULM in the same regard because, like you said, Marv, they didn't have a whole lot of wins that were going to be expected coming into the season. So, yeah. And also, look, I've said I wasn't sold on General Booty kind of coming in because it took so long to name him the starter. And there was something about that made me question whether he was going to be the guy. And then he was the guy, but he wasn't really blowing up the stat sheet. And I'm questioning why aren't they
impressive?
Yeah. What are they holding him back for? Or are they just not holding him back and he's just not getting it done as much? I think Armenta is the guy. I mean, he did transfer in himself, and I think that might have happened before Booty transferred in. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but he himself transferred in. Did he transfer in? No, maybe he might have been a recruit from the very start, actually. But he was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, so he may not be from the area, and that was a big get for them. But he looks like he's going to be the guy. He goes for only 4 of 6 for 108, but General went for 1 of 4 for 8 yards. So, I mean, you're just seeing the, early part of the season and they're starting to figure out what they need to do to continue their success. And maybe the quarterback change is one of those things that they said they're going to do. And Artie says, don't worry, an easy win coming your way next week, Troy.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, we've said it all along that the Sun Belt Conference is not easy. It doesn't get any easier from out of conference to in conference. Tony, this is the all name team. Yep, for General Booty. Booty is not consistent enough to be that dude of the Sun Belt Conference. Yeah, I mean, I saw the same thing that you saw, Tyler. I wasn't sold on him, and you hate to say that about somebody, but when you come in with pretty big, lofty expectations from a very big program like Oklahoma, and you've got this name that everyone's going to be, watching you under a microscope even more for, you kind of got to put up or shut up, right? So I just didn't see. I haven't seen that yet. Maybe he'll round into form, and maybe he's learning a new system that's taken him longer to grasp. Again, we don't know the inner workings of that, but maybe a possibility. Yeah, Warhawks. Why did they get brought into the Sun Belt? They do have a national title to their name back in 1987, as Tony points out. I did write an article about that. Like, why was the Sun Belt succeeding? Well, go look at who they grabbed. They didn't just grab all these random teams. They're grabbing teams with culture, history, and tradition, as Marv alluded to earlier. He named them all off as why the Sun Belt has been successful at this pace with who they've added. Okay, the nightcap did not go as I expected. I guess I should temper that. I did expect number 14 LSU to win this game ultimately. Yeah. And I did not think that 42 points for them, was kind of out of the question. The part that surprised me the most was South Alabama only putting up 10 with an offense that looked like it was unstoppable for their last 2 games. Yeah, but they go down here 42-10 to LSU. LSU moves to 4-1. South Alabama drops to 2-3. A record to me that is not indicative of how good this team really is. You said you watched a vast majority, if not all, of this one, right?
Yeah, I watched bits and pieces. I mean, LSU came out like gangbusters. I think it was 35-0 or 35-3 at halftime. When you really sit back and look at the numbers, so LSU put up 667 yards of offense, which is a lot. 430 through the air, but they did turn the ball over twice. USA won the time of possession. If you look at quarterback play, like Gio Lopez, 16 for 22 for 171 and a touchdown. They were just outmanned. I didn't expect the game to be close. I did think they might move the ball a little bit better than what they did. But LSU's got some big old boys, right? They're number 14 for a reason. But, I didn't expect them to get the win. I didn't expect them to keep it close, but I did think they moved the ball a little bit better. But honestly, as an App fan who played a team that was about the same ranking at that time, I would have loved a 32-point loss, So but like you said, I don't think it's indicative of who South Alabama is as a team. I think they're better than that.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of, you look at the second half, it was 7-7 if you just take the second half score.
Yeah, so, keep in mind LSU put in.
They pulled the dogs.
Yeah. Up to that point, yeah.
Yeah, so you do have to say that too. But, I mean, they took care of the ball. South Alabama took care of the ball. They did not turn the ball over. They did have a fumble, but they covered it, and then they intercepted Nessmeyer twice. So, I mean, they have some things. Again, this record, this score is not indicative of what you're going to see in the Sun Belt play, I don't think. I don't know if you're going to see games like they had against App State either. But, I mean, still look out for those Jaguars. I think they're going to be pretty phenomenal coming in to this season. I think there's one last slide here that we usually go. It's the overall outlook or weather forecast type thing. I've just moved it. It's a lot more even. There was a time when there was like 5 or 6 teams in one slot, and I feel like after this week, it's kind of moved around where it's really even spaced out between here. Throw me some stuff that you don't agree with here, Marvin. It's fine to rip it apart.
I think the weather reference is a little insensitive after this week, but no, I mean, you're right. It's going to become less jumbled as the season goes on, as the picture gets a little bit clearer. I think the teams on the left-hand side are the best teams right now. I don't know if I'd have ULM's definitely looking sunny right now because 3-1 record. Right. Are they one of the top 4 teams in the league at the end of the season? I don't think so. But I think it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. And in fairness, this isn't like where I think teams are at, like standing wise. It is kind of like, it's almost like more like a fan base outlook, right?
No,
like what are they thinking? Yeah, and so you got
one right now. You're pretty damn happy.
Yeah, that's very true.
If you're over on the right, App State fans down the dumps, Troy fans, Southern Miss. So it's pretty accurate. It's going to shift week to week, but
yes.
It's kind of like on the baseball podcast. As the season goes on, especially now that we're getting into conference play, I don't think anybody has a outside of conference game this week. This will become more and more clear over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. And Tyler says how crazy it is. Troy and App State are hanging out the bottom this year after being at the top last season. Crazy. And Tony saying it is very accurate for Southern Miss. And okay, so we'll get back to Tony's question here if I can find it. Okay, here we go. What do y'all think of Casey Keeler of Sam Houston maybe being a candidate for the Southern Miss job when it becomes open? 2-time national championship coach. They're up there in Delaware for one, and Sam Houston obviously for the other.
Well, as an App fan, got a little experience with him at a national championship game in 2007 with Mr. Joe Flacco.
Yep.
I don't know what to think about that. So I obviously don't know Casey as a person at all. Would have thought that his coaching trajectory, he's been around for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would have thought that if he was a phenomenal coach, that he might have made it higher than what he's already made it. Seems like he's kind of been a mid-tier FCS, low-tier G5 coach for a very long time. I don't know. Southern Miss has a great tradition of football. Just off the top of my head, I would say I think they can do better than that.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it as like a stopgap, kind of like you're saying, like, give them a – I don't even know, though, because what these coaches probably ask for through an agent is a big contract for a lot of money for a lot of years, right? I mean, that's probably the standard.
Got to have that buy.
If you could have that like 2 to 3 year contract and like, hey, if it's not working out, we won't have to spend any money to buy you out. It'll just end and then we'll just go our separate ways. But like you said, the history and tradition at Southern Miss would lead me to think that they probably have somebody. I mean, if I'm looking at it now, I'm leaning toward like the GJ Kenny type of thing, like some hot up and coming young gun coach who's got like some kind of crazy offensive thing that he's got on his side, and he's going to come and implement it, and it's going to set the league on fire type of thing. That's what I'm thinking that I'm looking at personally. It's not, I mean, Casey would be a great choice. I don't think he'd be a bad coach. I think you have to know about how he's going to handle the NIL situation aspect, because that's something that's newer to him at this level, right? With moving up from FCS with Sam Houston State, that's not something he's done for a long period of time. Is he successful in this kind of marketplace of college football, or, is it too early to say? And again, I think these younger guys probably know how to deal with that and how to treat that better than somebody who's a little bit more old school, like maybe Casey is. Maybe he's adopted really well. Again, those are, like you said, Marv, those are things we don't know about him personally.
Yeah. It's also different with the portal. You used to bring a coach in and you give him time to get his recruits in, to build his program, set up his staff, set up his style of offense and defense, where, like you said, if you get some kind of young gun coordinator in that's got some fancy offense, like, you don't have to go recruit that anymore. You just bring in guys from the portal that are kind of suited for that, and it kind of expedites the curve, if you will.
Yes.
So I don't know. It's with the NIL and the portal thing, I think we're just in a whole new era of college football that, to be honest with you, I'm not crazy about. I miss the old days where, you brought a kid in and he's set for 2 years behind some guys that had kind of embraced themselves in the culture and tradition of the program and showed the young guns how to go. And now it's just like, hey, this kid's available because he wasn't getting playing time here, so let's bring him in because he'll fit this new scheme that we have. And I don't think it gives you the stability that you really want and that a lot of us are used to.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and we'll see if that stability ever comes back, right?
It's gone, buddy, unless they change something. I unfortunately think it's gone. It's like we talked last week, when Sean Clark is the longest tenured coach in the Sun Belt at 5 years, you can't really build anything in 5 years. In 5 years, you should have something built, right? But it's just different nowadays.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And we'll just have to learn to start living with it and dealing with it, because it's not going to change anytime soon, unfortunately. But yeah, I think that about wraps it up. Already saying great show, guys. Get well soon, Seth. Yeah, and hopefully he starts feeling a little bit better. And obviously some of those products and supplies that people are sending in or sending up are getting to him and his other neighbors. And some of these roads and situations can be repaired as fast as humanly possible, but it's not going to be something that happens overnight, unfortunately. So appreciate you joining in here, Tony, too. Appreciate that, man. And Warhawks to close out the show from the Warhawk Report from the Fun Belt podcast. Had to get that in there. Yeah. Great over Troy this week.
Warhawks got a big game this week.
Who's on there?
James Madison.
Oh, that's right. Oh.
In Monroe.
In Monroe, yeah, that's going to be a huge one. I expect a pretty good packed house for that with what they've done on the field so far, and AMU coming in undefeated.
7 p.m. on the U.
Man, don't miss that one, folks. That one could get interesting.
I agree. Something about game of the week if I had to circle one.
Yeah, that's crazy. Who would have thought that one coming into the season, right? Not me.
Not me either. I think find out a lot about ULM in that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard from many times from players being interviewed, ULM, not an easy place to play. So weird things happen. Yes. So thanks for tuning in. Again, thoughts and prayers go out to everybody there in Boone and Statesboro and every other area that was affected. There's countless ones to name, unfortunately. But, speedy recovery. Best wishes to everybody involved with trying to get back on the right foot there. But we will see you guys for Wednesday's preview episode.
See you guys.